right. All right. It's not ESPN's 30 for 30. However, it is my 98 for 98. The 98 seasons in the history of the New York Football Giants. I'm going to try to get it done in 98 days. Probably not going to get it done in 98 days, but I do want to get it done before the beginning of the season, which starts September 10th against the Dallas Cowboys, and I should be able to get it done by then. But we're getting into the 70s. We're at the 1972 season, which just happened to be the 48th season in the history of the New York Giants. From 1964 to 1980 was, I think it's called, or I call it, and I don't know about sure, but the wilderness years. You just kind of, them and their record, they're lost in the wilderness. From 1964, 1980, there was no playoff appearances for the New York Giants. It was 2 winning seasons, and 3 seasons they had 500 records. Right, 65, 67, 68, they were 500. 1970 and 1972, they had winning records. So this is 1972. So this is supposed to be a happy occasion, right? Unfortunately, after this season, back-to-back 2-win seasons. Oh, my God. Oh, just some bad football. So 1972, it was a surprisingly, wound up being a very good. They scored a lot of points. I think they led the NFC in points scored. Of course, they beat the Eagles at home in Yankee Stadium 62-10, so that did help a little bit. Norm Snead actually led, I think, the NFL in passing completion percentage. It was 60.3%. It was just like, it was like from 1972, and then a lot of the same guys were there in 1973, and it was just like night and day. They went from 8-6, and I said in 73 they 2-11-1. What's up today? 72 was the last time the Bears tied versus the Rams. Very good. It was just like night. It was just, but 72 was a very, very good season for the Giants. Obviously they were 8-6. They just missed on the play. I think they missed the play. I think it was like 2 games or out with 2 games. But the one thing you can say about the 72 Giants, their 6 losses were all against good quality opponents. 4 of the losses were to teams that actually went to the championship games. One to the Dolphins, who were 17-0, won the Super Bowl. 2 of them were to the Washington Redskins, who went to the Super Bowl. And one of them, week 2 of the season, they lost at home. What was it, 23-14, I think it was. But we'll go over the games. Week 2 was against the Cowboys, who went to the championship game, who lost to the Redskins in the championship game 26-3. But 4 of the losses were the teams that went to the championship game. So, but once again, this was, this is the George Allen era. George Allen took over in 1971 for the Redskins. From 1971 to 75, 10 straight. We got swept by the Redskins 5 straight years, and then we lost to them again the first time we played them, which was the first game of the season in 1976. So we lost to the Redskins 11 times in a row. So 71, 72, 73, 74, 75, you just chalk up 2 losses to the Redskins every year. And, we only beat the Cowboys a couple times in the 70s. We lost a lot to the Eagles. So but I mean, the first game of the season, the Giants lost to the Lions, I believe. I gotta look here. Once again, I do a pod. I got 300,000 tabs open. But the Lions were 8-6, or the heck were they? 8-5-1. They were 8-5-1. And then they lost to the Bengals, the third to last game of the season, which officially eliminated them from playoff contention. The Bengals were 8-6. So they lost to the Redskins 2 times, who were 11-3. They lost to the Cowboys once, who were 10-4. They lost to the Dolphins, who were 14-0. They lost to the Bengals, who were 8-6, and they lost to the Detroit Lions on opening day, 8-5-1. So, but this was also kind of a start of a new era for the Giants. They traded Fran Tarkenton back to the Minnesota Vikings. I got a little article here I want to read. This will help explain things a little bit better, kind of on, what happened with Fran, the man, and the Giants, and why they want to trade them back to Minnesota. It says things soured between Tarkenton and the Giants in 1971. First, he upset team president Wellington Mara when he briefly walked out prior to the first preseason game due to a contract dispute. He wanted to get paid more money. Don't blame him. I mean, I understand guys getting paid nowadays and all this and everything. I get that. But, the guys getting paid nowadays, quite a few of them are making like life-changing money, and they complain they want the most money and they want what's this and blah, 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 all that stuff. I get that. That's all cute and fine and fancy. But, a lot of guys, 1 year's salary is like life-changing money. And all the guys, all they do is complain that they want more and more and more. Well, back, in the 70s, in the 60s and all of that and everything, there was no bargaining agreement. There was no players union. There was none of that stuff. There was no agents. Or maybe there was some agents, but there was like none of a lot of that other stuff. So, pretty much you were, if they didn't want to pay, you were pretty much screwed. You could hold out or whatever you wanted to do, but, a lot of times you were pretty much screwed. And, a lot of what the guys got paid was, a lot of guys got paid $30,000, $40,000, $50,000 a year. That was very good money back then. Don't get me wrong. If they got paid, I don't know what their salary exactly was, but I know Joe Namath got paid, I think it was like $400 and some $1,000 for 4 or 5 years. I think it was with the Jets when he said, so, but that was the exception. But a lot of the guys, made like, there was one of the guys, somebody had to work 2 jobs. Bell, he was a linebacker for the Hall of Fame linebacker for the Kansas City Chiefs. He worked for General Motors, I think it was. He went to practice in the morning, and in the afternoon he went to General Motors so he could afford to feed his family. These people. Some people played football. Bobby Bell. Bobby Bell. He was the linebacker for the Kansas City Chiefs. I think it was General Motors he worked for. He had to work 2 jobs. He had to play football, and not only play football, but to help support his family, just so they could eat and all of that, he had to work a job. These guys don't do that nowadays. And, I said, it's nice they get paid their money and all, but what they get paid is life-changing money. And all they do is complain that they want more and more and more. Sometimes I'll keep my mouth shut on that. But back then, especially when you're doing a real good job and you're leading the team and all that stuff and everything, that's, guys back then, I said a lot of them were pretty much screwed. So anyway, he had the contract dispute. So as the team dropped in the standings in 1971 and the Giants finished 4-10, Tarkenton expressed a desire to play for a contending team. The Giants were 33-37 in 5 years. Tarkenton started as quarterback, but a lot of it was because the talent around him just was not there. And his last season, with the Giants in 1971, Tarkenton threw for 11 touchdowns and 21 interceptions. By far, that was his worst season, by far. New York Giants head coach Alex Webster expressed the hope that the trade would help the team in 1972 and beyond, thanks to the package of veterans and draft picks they received. So they basically got 5 guys for Tarkenton. One of them was Norm Snead, who wound up being a quarterback for the Giants. He left. He was there for 72 and 73 and 74. But so Norm Snead, they got Norm Snead from the Vikings. They got Bob Grimm from the Vikings, who played just a couple seasons for the Giants. So, but they got Norm Snead. This is they're trading a Hall of Fame quarterback back to the Vikings. So they got Norm Snead, who played like 72, 73, and like 74, I think, with the Giants. Then he left. They had Bob Grimm, I think, who played 3 seasons for the Giants, and he was gone. Then they had Vince Clemens, who they drafted. The Vikings drafted in the 4th round of the 1971 draft. He played like 2 seasons, I think, for the Giants. So that's what the Giants got in return, and they also got 2 draft picks. Let's see here. And the irony of it was that, the kind of funny thing was that the Giants traded Fran Tarkenton back to a contender in 72. Giants got some guys in return, but the funny thing about it is in 72, the Giants actually wound up with a better record than the Vikings. Right? The Vikings didn't make the playoffs. They were 7-7. They came in 3rd place. The Giants came in 3rd place too, missed the playoffs, but they wound up at 8-6. So they wound up with a better record. But after 72, the Vikings went to Super Bowls with Tarkenton, went to 3 Super Bowls with Tarkenton, and the Giants just went in dumper after that. But let's see here. Let's see. Okay, the Giants, all right, they got 2 draft choices for Fran Tarkenton. One turned out to be a beaut, straight up beaut. And another funny thing, if you want to think about this, Fran Tarkenton was number 10. He left. The Giants drafted with his pick in 1970. They got 2 picks for Fran Tarkenton. A 1st rounder in 72, which I'm going to go over in just a second here. Then they got a 3rd rounder. I think it was 3rd rounder. I'll find out in a second. First round, first pick in the 1st round in the 2nd round. My bad, 2nd round. So they got a 1st rounder, who I'm going to go over in a minute, and then they got a 2nd rounder who was Brad Van Pelt. His number was number 10. So they traded away number 10. They drafted a guy who wound up playing number 10. But Brad Van Pelt played from 73 to 83, played 11 seasons for the Giants, went to some Pro Bowls, wound up being a fantastic pick for the Giants. So, but the other pick that the Giants had, which now I'm going to start going into their draft. All right, I'll start coming full circle out. Let me go into their draft or lack thereof. And then I'll go back to their season. We'll go over their games and all that and everything, and some of the player stats and whatnot. All right. So the Giants got 3 players. All right. And basically none of them really panned out for the Giants. None of them ever played very long. Vince Clemens, Bob Grimm, and Norm Snead. So then they got their 1st round pick that they got from the Vikings was Larry Jacobson. So let me go over the Giants. Let me go over their draft here, and we'll start dissecting some of their draft here. Let me see here. Nope, that's not. I got 300,000 tabs open here. All right, 1972. All right, the New York Giants. We'll do this real fast. 1972 New York Giants season was the franchise's 48th season, for the Giants. The Giants had an 8-6 record, finished 3rd place in the NFC East, 3 games behind Washington, who was 11-3. The Giants had 2 first-round selections in 1972 NFL draft. We'll go over these more in detail in just a second here. And they chose, Eldridge Small, and they took Larry Jacobson. Eldridge Small was the 17th overall pick. Larry Jacobson was the 24th overall pick, respectively. Before the season, New York traded their starting quarterback, Fran Tarkenton, to the Vikings for a package of players and draft picks that included Norm Snead, who led the league in pass completion percentage, 60.3, I think it was, in 1970. And then after that, it was just like all downhill. Anyway, Giants lost twice to open the season. They lost to the Lions and they lost to the Cowboys to open the season, but went on a 4-game winning streak. In their 11th game, with the 4-game winning streak, which I'm going to go over, also included their first ever Monday night victory when they beat the Eagles 27-12 at the Veterans Stadium. Ron Johnson scored a team record 4 touchdowns in that game. Let's see. In their 11th game, the Giants defeated the Eagles 62-10, setting the franchise record for most points scored in a game. It was also an Eagles record for the most points allowed. The victory put the team at 7-4 and in contention for the playoffs. However, So they're at 7-4. They had 3 games left. I think pretty much had to win out just to have a chance. But the 3 teams that had to play was the Cowboys, the Dolphins, and the Bengals. Well, they lost their 12th game of the season on the road to Cincinnati. I believe it was 13-10. And then they lost the following week to the undefeated Miami Dolphins. They lost 23-13. They were right there. They had 6 turnovers. The Dolphins had 1. The 6 turnovers just crushed the Giants. I mean, the Dolphins didn't beat them. The Giants beat themselves. The Giants ended the season with a resounding victory in Dallas, 23-3. So they ended up really playing a fantastic game against the Cowboys. Let's see. Ron Johnson scored 9 touchdowns on running plays to top the NFL, and his 1,182 rushing yards broke the Giants' single-season record, which was held by him, who did it in 1970. This was the last winning season for the Giants until 1981 when they drafted Lawrence Taylor. So, do we got it here? We got it here? We got it? No. All right, so let's go to a... Oh, here we go. All right. So now, my goodness. So the Giants selected Eldridge Small. Actually, the Giants actually had their hands, on 3 first-round draft picks in the 1972 NFL draft. They finished 4-10 in 71. So therefore, they had the 3rd overall pick in the 72 NFL draft. However, they traded that 1st overall pick away to the Chicago Bears the year before. They got Bob Hyland and Benny McRae from the Bears for the 3rd overall pick. Oh my God. So, so they had 3. They would have wound up with 3 first-round picks. I'll go over the next 2. But they had the 3rd overall pick, and they traded away for Bob Hyland, who wound up playing 5 seasons for the Giants, and Benny McRae, who played, I think, like 2 seasons for the Giants. So just unbelievable. Absolute horrible, horrible, horrible decisions. Then the Giants had the 17th overall pick, which had to do with Fred Dreyer leaving the Giants or wanting to leave the Giants. The Giants traded him to the Patriots, who then I think traded him to the Rams. So the Giants wound up with the 17th overall pick out of all of that, and with that the Giants wound up with Eldridge Small. They traded Fred Dreyer to the Patriots for their 1st-round pick. A 1972 6th-round pick and a 73 2nd-round pick. But the problem was the 73 pick they wound up trading to the Browns for wound up being Greg Pruitt. So the Giants traded that one away. It's just unbelievable. They just one catastrophe after the other. So we're going to go over that 73 debacle tomorrow. But right now, so the Giants traded away Fred Dreyer to the Patriots, and he didn't wind up playing with the Patriots. He wound up going to the Rams. So on all of that, for the Giants getting Fred Dreyer, they wound up with the 17th overall 1st-round pick in 1972 draft. They wound up with the 6th-round pick, Mike Perfetti, whoever that is, and then they wound up with a 2nd-round pick in 1973. So they actually wound up with a nice little haul. They got a 1st-round pick, a 2nd-round pick, and then Mike Perfetti. But I said the 2nd-round pick might have been Greg Pruitt. But anyway, the first pick, the 1st-round pick they got, pick number 17, they got Eldridge Small. Let's see. He played for the Giants for 3 seasons. I know I got him open up here someplace. I just got to find him. Once again, I apologize. I got 3,000 tabs open up here. Nope, I guess I don't. Oh, well. But he played 3 seasons for the Giants, Eldridge Small. 72 to 74. I think he wound up with 1 interception. Larry Jacobson, 72. He wound up in his career, I think he wound up with one interception. he was on special teams. He returned kicks and stuff like that. But let's see. Yeah, he played from 72 to 74 for the Giants. That's their first round pick. He lasted 3 seasons. Never played another down in the NFL. Actually, he got nope. Let's see. I got there he is. Nope. There we go. Actually, the Cleveland Browns have cut loose defensive back Eldridge Small, the man they acquired from the New York Giants after Tom Darden was injured. Cleveland traded a draft choice to get Eldridge Small in 1975. So he played 72, 73, and 74 with the Giants. Giants traded him to the Browns for a draft pick. But the deal was contingent upon Eldridge Small making the team, so no draft choice was lost. He didn't even make the team. He got cut. Forrest Gregg, the coach, said he was too far behind, meaning, I guess, his knowledge and all of that was not up to snuff. And he didn't seem in very good condition, Coach Forrest Gregg said of Small. We didn't feel he's as good as the players we have, so there was no sense in keeping him. So basically, Eldridge Small got traded to the Browns. They didn't even want him. So they just let him go, and Eldridge Small never played another down in the NFL ever again. That was the number 17 overall pick for the Giants in 1972. 3 seasons. And that was it. Eldridge Small. See, what did he play? He played in 34 games. He started 10 games. In 1974, he started 10 games. But his rookie season, he didn't start any games. He was basically on kick returns and stuff like that. His second season, he played in 8 games. He didn't start any games. So, I mean, they drafted a number 17 overall pick. The guy doesn't even start. Oh, absolutely horrible. Absolutely horrible. Then the next one was the pick that they wound up getting. Let's see here. The pick they wound up getting from the Vikings, okay, wound up being pick number 24 because there was only 26 teams in the NFL at the time. So pick 24 was late in the first round. Let's see. So the Giants got pick number 24 when they wound up taking Larry Jacobson. Now, the Giants, I think, might be the only team in NFL history who took back-to-back Outland Trophy winners. In 1972, they drafted Larry Jacobson. 1973, they took Rich Glover. Was a phenomenal, I think it was like a defensive end or so for Nebraska. The freaking guy was everywhere. I remember watching the guy play. He was good. I will go over more of that, I guess, tomorrow when we talk about his draft, right? When he gets drafted. Then in 1974, they took John Hicks, who was a good guard from Ohio State, Outland Trophy winner. So back-to-back Outland Trophy winners. You figure that would really bolster their. Now, between the 3 guys, they played, I think, 7 years for the Giants. I mean, it's just ungodly, unbelievable. Anyway, Larry Jacobson. Where is he at here? Nope, that's when he retired. I got. Nope, that's him. Hold on, I got the Larry. Is that him? Is that him? Is it? Nope. I got a Larry Jacobson kind of thing going on here. But he played his rookie season with the Giants, and then unfortunately for him, injuries started creeping up on him. There we go. Unfortunately, let's see. His let's see. Larry Jacobs. Okay. He played in all 14 games, right? He started 9 games in 1972. So the Giants took him out of Nebraska, Outland Trophy winner. He was like a defensive tackle. He played in all 14 games, started in 9 of them. He had 4 sacks. So, I mean, things, as time got by, maybe he'd get better, a little more experience. Maybe he gets some more and more sacks. But he was 6'6", 250, somewhere around there. Looked like a real good prospect. Looked like a really, really good pick for the Giants. However, injuries started creeping in. Freaky injuries, not injuries on the field, freakish injuries. This article was in the preseason, just before the Giants were going to play the preseason game in 1972 against the New York Jets. It says the New York Giants received another encouraging report at their training camp today. Larry Jacobson may be ready for opening game of the regular season. The 6'6", 250-pound defensive tackle who suffered a severely gashed foot after stepping on a piece of glass around the pool on June 27th. So he was around somebody's pool. I don't know, it was his pool. There was a pool party, whatever. Stepped on a piece of glass on June 27th, 1973. Gashed his foot. Had a cast removed from his leg today, it said, by his doctor, the club's orthopedic surgeon. The wound is completely healed, Pisani said, words that brought a relieved smile to the face of Coach Alex Webster. Larry said still has partial loss of sensation under his great toe and his second toe of the left foot, but he has good motion in all his toes, which indicate everything is intact. So I mean, that caused them some to lose some time in his second season. Actually, because in his second season, he only played in 8 games, and he started 1 game his second season. His third season, I read another article and I couldn't find it. He played in his third season, 1974. He played in 11 games, started 3. Well, apparently in the article I read, he said he was complaining something about he was having a problem with his back. I don't know if it wound up, that led to they found an additional in his foot. Another additional piece of glass was like 1 inch or a half an inch in size in his foot. So I said, I don't know if that had something to do with the back injury or what, but once again, he only played in 11 games in his third season, 1974. He started in 3 of them. And apparently they found another piece of glass in his foot. Then the next season, in 1975, in preseason, now this one's a kicker here. They're practicing and all and everything. And he said in this article I read that one of the Giants, I think rookie backs, they pretty much, I guess in practice or whatever, they didn't want him cutting the people, in a block. Well, apparently he said this one rookie back cut him pretty good. And he got on the ground, and apparently a pile of guys fell on him, broke his leg. So just, freakish accident. Well, he said that they had him off. They didn't even pick him up. He was there in pain and all that, and they just moved practice over. He said about 10, 15 feet, and he kept practicing. Well, they took him to the hospital, and he said that the coach at the time, 1975, would have been Bill Arnsparger. He said he didn't even call to see how he was doing, didn't see how to check up on him or anything like that. I mean, just unbelievable. And I think he said he had to find his own way home too. So I guess the ambulance or whatever it was, maybe the ambulance came and took him or something, whatever. But to the hospital, but nobody came and checked up on him to see how he was doing or anything like that. I don't know how long he was in the hospital for with the broken leg, but I guess they casted it. Maybe he was there overnight or something. I don't know. But he said apparently after that, he had to find his own way home too. So, I mean, could you imagine that today? Like, say, Sexy Dexy breaks his leg in practice, and then Coach Dable doesn't even see how he's doing or nothing like that. And Sexy's got to find his own way to the hospital, his own way home. I mean, could you imagine that in today's day and age? Well, and then, so basically he missed the 75 season with a broken leg. In 1976, he called it quits. And I got this article here where he calls it quits. Let's see, on July 9th, 1976, Larry Jacobson. Well, actually, the article was on July 9th, so it might have been July 8th. Maybe he retired. So might have been July 8th, 1976. Larry Jacobson, a defensive tackle and the New York Giants' #1 draft pick in 1972, but who has been hampered by injuries the last 3 seasons, retired today, the club announced. Jacobson, who played college football in Nebraska, was a starter in all his games as a rookie. But 1973, he missed. Here it says the entire season. He didn't miss that entire season. He played in some games with a severed tendon in his foot from stepping on the glass. He played sparingly in 1974, and last year he suffered a broken leg in July during training camp. And again, he missed the whole season with the broken leg. So the Giants said 72 players reporting to the training camp pace cat underwent physical examinations. They began a 2-day drills tomorrow. So basically, he failed the physical. So the Giants said 72 players reported to their preseason training camp at Pace College and underwent physical examinations. I think he said in his article he went to training camp, expecting to start playing. He failed his physical, and I think he just had enough of it. He just decided to retire. So it was just an absolute shame. I mean, he could have had a somewhat of a bright future, for the Giants, but I mean, just freakish injuries just ended his career. It was just unbelievable. It was he just couldn't catch a break. But the Giants did do one thing. If they did one thing correctly, as we're going to start noticing now. All right, in the Giants are starting to draft guys. Okay, this draft was ungodly horrible as well too. But they did start getting guys. They traded for Jack Gregory. They traded him from the Cleveland Browns. He led the NFL in sacks. I think I heard 21. I heard 22. I heard 20 sacks. I heard 19 and a half. He had a lot of sacks in a 14-game schedule. If he played 16 games like Michael Strahan did, he probably would have had 24, 25 sacks. So he would have had the NFL record. But it's what it is. But the Giants traded for Jack Gregory. So you're going to start noticing that the Giants each year, just basically pretty much on defense, started adding another piece to the puzzle. On defense. That's where their defense started getting better and better and better. I mean, obviously they didn't go to the playoffs till the 80s, but that's where their defense starts coming on a little bit. This year in the 3rd round, they drafted John Mendenhall. They traded for Jack Gregory, who was an end. They drafted John Mendenhall, number 64, who played for the Giants from 72 to 79, I believe it was. 1980, his last season was with the Detroit Lions, but he played a while for the Giants. So they got themselves, I mean, actually, their first 3 picks were all defense. They took Eldridge Small, Larry Jacobson, and John Mendenhall. But John Mendenhall is the only one who really stuck. They took Tom Gatewood, who had a phenomenal career at Notre Dame. He lasted 2 seasons with the Giants. The Giants drafted John Hill, who wound up being a center in the league in the 6th round. He played from 72 to 85, but he only played, I think, like 3 years with the Giants. And then the rest of his career, he played with, I think, the Saints and somebody else. Who did he play for? He played for the Saints. What did he play for the Giants? 3 seasons for the Giants. And he played for the Saints. Oh, his final season in 85, he played for the 49ers. But he was the Saints starting center for years, for over 10 years. He only played 3 years for the Giants. I mean, just another horrible. They had 17 rounds. Basically, they drafted one guy he had a nice career with the Giants. One guy in 17 rounds, but he was a piece to the puzzle, especially on defense. We're going to start seeing each year that goes by. 73, they got Van Pelt, right, and so on. So 75, they got George Martin. 76, they got Harry Carson. They also got Troy Archer on defensive tackle. So each year they got like another piece to the puzzle on defense. So this year they added Jack Gregory and they added John Mendenhall. These are the guys that are going to start building the foundation on the defense. The offense was absolutely freaking putrid after 72. 73 on, just forget it. Horrible offenses. But the defense, a lot of times, kept them in games. And this is a lot of where it started right here was in 1972. They got Jack Gregory and they got John Mendenhall. 2 key pieces on the defensive front. But I mean, that's their draft. They're just so horrible. So horrible. All right, the 1972 here. Let's go over their games here. I mean, actually, it was such a they led the NFL in they only gave up 10 sacks all year long. They had 37. Gregory had like 21 of them, but they had 37 sacks, but they only gave up 10 sacks in 14 games. Their offensive line was fantastic. Ron Johnson was healthy all year long. This is what they missed last year in 71. He played 14 games for the Giants. He had 1,182 yards rushing. He had 9 touchdowns. He had 5 receiving touchdowns. He had 45 receptions. I mean, phenomenal season. I mean, other than that, Tucker Fredrickson retired after 71 due to injuries. But I mean, the other guys, they had Charlie Evans, Vince Clemens, Joe Orduña. I mean, then of course the ageless one was Joe Morrison. I believe this was his last season, 1972. Let me see. He played from 1959 to 1972. So this is Joe Morrison's last season. He had 100, and he played 180 at the time. It was a record for the Giants. 184 games he played for the Giants. Would have been over 200 if he played 16 games in a season like they do nowadays. But for the time, and that's why they retired. That's why you don't see anybody with number 40 for the Giants anymore, because of Joe Morrison. Right? He played from 1959 to 72. It was not a phenomenal. He just had a long career, and they just decided to retire his number. He played 6 positions for the Giants on offense. But but I said Norm Snead had a nice season. He completed 60.3% of his passes for 2,300 yards. 2,300 yards wasn't a lot, but it didn't have to be because they had they ran for over 2,000 yards. They averaged 144 yards a game rushing. They scored 16 rushing touchdowns. The defense only gave up 9 rushing touchdowns. They scored a lot. Their defense was not super duper phenomenal. What was it? They averaged 23.6 points per game. They gave up 17.6 points per game. So, very, very good. Very, very respectable. Let's see what else we got here. Rocky Thompson, he ran back a kickoff for a touchdown. He was their number 1 pick in 71. He only played, Rocky Thompson played 71, 72 in the first game of 73. He got injured against the Houston Oilers at Yankee Stadium, and he never played ever again in the NFL. I think in 74, 75, he played in the World Football League, but he never played again in the NFL. Let's see. Pete Gogolak had a good season. He was 21 out of 31. He kicked 34 out of 38 extra points. And he kicked 67.7% of his field goals, which is really, really good. Overall, it was a very, very good season. Very surprising. And especially because you figure if they lost the Hall of Fame quarterback, got Norm Snead, and they actually got better. But the other thing was with a lot of the same guys in 73, they went from an 8-6 season in 72 to a 2-11-1 season in 73. It just boggles my mind, especially when I was a kid watching this. It just boggled my mind. So anyway, let's go over their games here. The opening game, they lost to the Detroit Lions 30-16. In Detroit, their only touchdown was a Rocky Thompson kickoff. He ran a kickoff back for a touchdown. He ran 2 of them back. He ran one back in 1971 against the St. Louis Cardinals, and opening game here against the Lions, he ran back another one. That was the only touchdown the Giants scored, and they lost 30-16. Following week at home, the Giants opened up against the Dallas Cowboys. They would lose 23-14 to the Cowboys. So then they would start winning. Then they won their next 4 games. On Monday night, October 2nd, in Philadelphia, in Veterans Stadium, the Giants would prevail 27-12 to give them their first victory of the season, first ever Monday night victory. Ron Johnson had 4 touchdowns. And they said between, I think, his receptions and his running, which was at the time an NFL record, he had 41 touches. I think since then it's been broken. But let's see, what did he have? He ran the ball 36 times and he had 5 receptions. He had 184 total yards, ran the ball 36 times, and five. So 40. He had touched the ball 41 times, which at that time was an NFL record. And he had 4 touchdowns. So, I mean, he had a heck of a day. I mean, he was a special player. Unfortunately, he just kept getting injured. So, then the following week, the Saints came to town. Archie Manning, Eli's father, Giants whooped up on him. He had 5 interceptions that game. They had 6 turnovers. What did Archie Manning have? He had a bad game. Oh, 4. Okay, so he must have fumbled twice. He had 4 interceptions. So Giants really did a good job on him. The Giants won 45-21. Actually, it was 45-7 at one point. The Saints scored 2 touchdowns in the final quarter just to make it somewhat kind of respectable. But the Giants beat the Saints 45-21. Now they're 2-2. Following week on the road against the 49ers would be a tough game. 49ers went to the championship game in 70-71. They lost both times to the Dallas Cowboys. That's why there's such a rivalry right now between the 49ers and the Cowboys in the playoffs. Huge rivalry. Started in 1970. 70-71, 2 back-to-back championship games. The Cowboys won both of them. 17-10 in Kezar Stadium in San Francisco. Then they won in the new Dallas Stadium 14-3 in 1971. So the 49ers would win the division once again and go back to the playoffs. So the 49ers were a good team in 72. The Giants went into San Francisco, very, very rainy, very, very wet field. The Giants would win 23-17. Now they're 3-2. The following week, the Cardinals came to town. The Cardinals were up 21-7. The Giants fought their way back, forged ahead 27-21, and stopped the Cardinals on like a drive toward the end of the game, I think it was, to prevail and hold on to the victory. They won 27-21. So now they're 4-2. Then the big one, then the George Allen factor comes in. Once again, the Washington Redskins come to Yankee Stadium for the 7th game of the season on Sunday, October 29th. Giants will lose 23-16. The Giants were down 23-9. It was actually, I think it was 9-9 at halftime. The Giants were down 23-9 at one point. They scored a touchdown with like about under a minute to go. Bob Tucker caught a touchdown pass. They tried the onside kick. The Redskins recovered it. Game was over. Now the Giants are 4-3. The following week, the Broncos came to town. First time the Giants ever played the Broncos. It was in Yankee Stadium on Sunday, November 5th, 1972. The Giants would win 29-17. Then the following week, once again, the Washington Redskin factor came in. The Giants on Sunday, November 12th, played with the Washington Redskins in Washington. They lost 27-13. Now the Giants are 5-4, and any playoff hopes, basically, they would pretty much have to win out if they wanted. They would have to pretty much be 10-4, because the way the Cowboys were the wild card team. They finished 10-4. So for the Giants to have a chance, actually the Cowboys had 3 losses going into the final week of the season, and the Giants beat them. So, I mean, the Giants had to pretty much win out just to have a playoff chance. Well, the following week, the Giants would go into St. Louis, Sunday, November 19th. They would play the Cardinals. They would beat them 13-7. Now the Giants are 6-4. Following week, the Eagles come to town. Week 11, Yankee Stadium, Sunday, November 26th, 1972. Remember that day. Giants 62, Eagles 10. Yeah. So now the Giants are 7-4. They still have 3 games left, 3 very tough opponents. Giants would have to win out. Was not happening. Didn't happen. The following week, Sunday, December 3rd, first time the Giants ever played the Bengals, was in Cincinnati. They lost 13-10. They had the ball with, I don't know, a minute or so to go. Randy Johnson had him driving. They were at their own maybe 30 or 40 yard line, but he threw a pass. He got intercepted. Game was over. They just needed it. At least they needed to get a tie. Couldn't afford a loss. They got a loss 13-10. So then the following week, the Miami Dolphins came to town in the Yankee Stadium on Sunday, December 10th. First time the Giants ever played the Dolphins, 1972. Right, it was in 72. The Dolphins wound up being 17-0, winning the Super Bowl. So they were a very good team. The Giants lost 23-13. The Giants were actually winning that one, I think, before half. They had a bunch of turnovers. They had 6 turnovers, and the Dolphins had 1. So you go -5 in the turnover department. Rocky Thompson, I know he fumbled a kickoff return. I think he gave the, I think, it gave the, I think the Dolphins gave them a field goal out of that. I mean, just the Giants missed an extra point. I mean, just the turnovers were just a killer. So basically it wasn't so much the Dolphins, the Giants just, blew it. They blew it. So they lost 23-13 to the eventual Super Bowl champions. In the final week of the season, Sunday, December 17th, in Dallas, the Giants beat the Cowboys 23-3. So good way to end the season. So the Giants finished 8-6, a very promising, very, very promising season for the Giants with hope for the future. It was not meant to be. Let's go through the divisions here. Miami wound up 14-0. So they won the AFC East. The AFC Central, the Steelers won. They were 11-3. And the Cleveland Browns were in second place. They were 10-4. The Oakland Raiders were 10-3-1. So they won the AFC West. So in the playoffs, the Miami Dolphins wound up beating the Cleveland Browns. Was it 20-14? 20-14. Yeah, the Dolphins had a block a punt and recovered for a touchdown. That was one of their scores for them to win the game. So anyway, so the Dolphins beat the Browns 20-14. In the other game was a very important historical play. Maybe you heard of it. The Pittsburgh Steelers won 13-7. You ever hear the Immaculate Reception? The Raiders were up 7-6, 22 seconds left to go. It was 4th down and 10. Bradshaw drops back to pass, throws the ball, bounces off of either Jack Tatum or the guy, the Steelers receiver, bounced off of somebody. Franco Harris picks it up just before it hits the ground, runs in for a touchdown. Steelers win 13-7, which sets up the Pittsburgh Steelers and the Miami Dolphins. Now, for some reason, the way it was back then, just because you had the best record didn't mean you were getting home field advantage. The Dolphins were 14-0, and they didn't have the home field advantage for the championship game. Championship game was held at Three Rivers Stadium in Pittsburgh. Dolphins would win 21-17. So they were the better team, and they won that one. All right, so then in the NFC, the Redskins won the NFC East. They were 11-3. The Cowboys were in second place. They were the wild card team. They were 10-4. Green Bay Packers were a flash in the pan. They won the NFC Central 10-4. The next time they went to the playoffs was until the 80s, I think. So there was a flash in the pan for the Packers. They won the division 10-4. San Francisco, with a record of 8-5-1, won the NFC East. So that therefore set up. The Packers went and played the Redskins in Washington the first round of the playoffs. They lost 16-3. And then the Cowboys went to San Francisco because the Cowboys were a wild card team. San Francisco hosted at the Candlestick Park, hosted the playoff game. The Cowboys were down 28-13 with about 6-7 minutes left to go. Roger Staubach comes in, directs them to 3 scores in the final 7-8 minutes of the game. Pulls it out. They wind up winning 30-28, which sets up the championship game between the Redskins and the Cowboys in Washington. Washington would prevail 26-3, which then sets up the Super Bowl between the Redskins and the Dolphins, and which of course the Miami Dolphins would wind up winning. When it was Super Bowl 7, Dolphins would win obviously 14-7 to finish undefeated at 17-0. Now it was 14. They were winning 14-0, and Garo Yepremians tried a long field goal, and it got blocked. And I think it was Mike Bass wound up scooping up the blocked ball, ran it in for a touchdown, make the score 14-7. So made it really close, kind of close. It was a little bit of time. The Redskins got the ball back with about a minute or two left to go in the game, but on 4 successive plays, they kept throwing incomplete passes. I think Kilmer might have got sacked on the last play of the game. Oh, I'm sorry, their last play of the game. He might have got sacked, I think it was, and the game was over. But so it was a close game. It was exciting. The Dolphins were, without question, a superior team that season. I mean, the Dolphins were, that year, they were, what were they? They were obviously 17-0. The following year, they were 12-2. I mean, they were a phenomenal team. 73, they won. The Dolphins won back-to-back Super Bowl, 72, 73. phenomenal team. But I mean, 1972, the Dolphins were the best team in football. Obviously, they were 17-0. But for the Giants, good season, surprising season. They lost their quarterback, traded away, got it. Norm Snead. Somehow they had a great, good offense. Their defense wasn't bad. They were 8-6. They lost 6 games to teams with very good records. Very surprising. But what was even more surprising was that they went from 8-6. The next season with a lot of the same guys. They went from 8-6 to 2-11-1. Very surprising. And then the worst thing after that, they went 2-11-1 in 73. 74, they were 2-12. So back-to-back 2-win seasons coming up. It's not pretty. Well, that pretty much wraps up the 1972 season for the New York Giants, which was a very successful season, which was also their second and last winning season from 1964 to 1980. So we got a ways to go from 73 to 80. Nothing but losing season, guys. So way it is. But so that wraps up the 1972 season. I'll be back again tomorrow with the 1973 season, which just happened to be the 49th season in the history of the New York Giants. I'll see you then.